The arena was silent. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of worlds sat in their seats and stared at the human standing in the center of the blood-soaked sand. His name was Ho, and he had just done something impossible. He had won the Galactic Arena. For 300 years, the tournament had existed. Warriors from every corner of the galaxy came to fight for glory, for riches, for power. The strongest species sent their champions. They sent their giant soldiers with skin like stone. The Empire sent their warriors with 4 arms and poison claws. The Collective sent their hunters who could see heat and move faster than any eye could follow. And Earth, that small blue planet at the edge of nothing, had sent one man. Ho stood alone in the arena. His body was covered in cuts and bruises. His left arm hung at his side, broken in 2 places. Blood dripped from a wound on his forehead and ran down his face. His simple combat suit was torn in many places, and one of his boots was missing. But he was alive, and the 12 champions who had faced him in the final battle were not. The crowd did not know how to react. Some species hated humans and refused to clap. Others were too shocked to move. A few began to cheer, but their voices were small in the massive arena. High above the sand, in the royal viewing platform, the rulers of the galaxy watched. Emperor of the Empire sat on his throne of black metal. His stone face showed no emotion, but his hands gripped the arms of his chair so hard that cracks appeared in the ancient wood. "This is impossible," he said. His voice was deep like thunder. "A human cannot defeat a warrior. It has never happened." "And yet it has happened today," said a soft voice beside him. The speaker was Lord of the Empire. He was tall and thin, with silver skin and eyes that held no pupils. His 4 arms were folded across his chest, and a cold smile played on his lips. "Your champion lasted only 6 minutes against the human," Lord continued. "My warrior lasted 8. The hunter lasted almost 12. But in the end they all fell the same way, face down in the sand." Emperor turned his massive head toward the Lord. "Your words are dangerous." "My words are true. There is a difference." Before the two could argue more, an ancient being floated forward. This was the Arbiter, a creature so old that no one remembered what species it had once been. Its body was hidden under robes of pure light, and its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The tournament is complete," the Arbiter announced. "The human called Ho of Earth is the victor. According to the sacred laws written 10,000 years ago, he may now claim his prize." The arena finally erupted in noise. Some cheered, some booed, some simply talked in loud voices to their neighbors, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Down on the sand, Ho finally allowed himself to breathe. He had trained for 15 years for this moment. He had left his home, his family, his entire world behind. He had studied every fighting style in the galaxy. He had learned the weaknesses of species that most humans had never even seen. And now he had won. Medical drones flew toward him, ready to heal his wounds, but Ho waved them away. Not yet. First, he needed to claim his prize. The Arbiter's voice filled the arena again. "Victor, step forward and speak your desire. Wealth beyond counting, a planet of your own, a fleet of warships. The ancient laws grant you the right to ask for anything within the power of the assembled empires to give." Ho looked up at the royal platform. He could see the emperors and lords and rulers all staring down at him. Some looked angry, some looked curious, some looked afraid. Good, he thought, let them be afraid. He had not come here for money. He had not come here for ships or planets. He had come here for something else entirely. "I know what I want," Ho said. His voice was rough from exhaustion, but it carried clearly through the arena's sound systems. "I want a person." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was unusual but not unheard of. Many past victors had claimed servants or slaves or even prisoners they wished to free. The Arbiter tilted its glowing head. "Speak the name." Ho pointed directly at the royal platform. but he did not point at Emperor or Lord or any of the powerful rulers. Instead, he pointed at a small figure sitting in the shadows at the very back. "I want Princess of the—" The silence that followed was complete. No one spoke, no one moved, even the wind seemed to stop blowing. Then chaos. 100 voices shouted at once. Rulers jumped to their feet. Guards reached for weapons. In the back of the royal platform, a small alien woman with pale blue skin and delicate silver markings froze in complete shock. Princess had never expected anyone to even notice her. They were considered the weakest species in the known galaxy. They were small, rarely taller than a human child. Their bones were light and broke easily. They had no claws, no venom, no natural weapons of any kind. Their planet had been conquered 600 years ago, and their people had been scattered across the stars as servants and slaves. Was a princess only in name? Her title meant nothing. Her planet belonged to the Empire now. She had been brought to the tournament as a servant to Emperor, meant to pour his drinks and carry his messages. She was 23 years old and had never been asked her opinion about anything in her entire life. And now a human warrior was pointing at her. "This is a joke," Emperor roared. "The human mocks us." "The human is within his rights," the arbiter replied calmly. "The princess is technically a citizen of your empire, Emperor. She is therefore within your power to give." "But why?" Lord asked, genuinely confused. "They are worthless. They have no strength, no wealth, no political power. Choosing this princess as a prize is like choosing a single grain of sand from a beach." Ho finally smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Maybe I like sand," he said. The arguing continued for almost an hour. Emperor insisted that the human must be trying to insult the Empire by choosing such a pathetic prize. Lord suggested that humans were simply too stupid to understand the value of things. Other rulers offered alternative prizes, trying to tempt Ho with ships and weapons and treasure. But Ho refused everything. He wanted only the princess. Finally, the arbiter raised its glowing hands. "Enough! The ancient laws are clear. The victor has made his choice. The choice must be honored. Princess of the Now belongs to the human called Ho of Earth." Belongs, the word hit like a physical blow. She had always been property, of course. First she belonged to the Empire. Now she belonged to a human. But hearing it said so clearly, so publicly, made her feel sick. 2 guards came and took her arms. They led her down from the royal platform, through the tunnels beneath the arena, and out onto the sand where Ho waited. Up close the human was terrifying. He was covered in blood and wounds. His dark eyes were intense and focused. He was at least twice her size, with muscles visible even through his torn suit. Had heard stories about humans. They were said to be persistent hunters, creatures who would chase their prey for days without stopping. They were said to be pack animals who would die for their families without hesitation. They were said to be unpredictable, emotional, and extremely dangerous when provoked. She wondered how he would kill her. Quickly, she hoped. She did not want to suffer. The guards released her and stepped back, stood alone before the human warrior, trembling. Her thin arms hung at her sides. Her silver hair fell across her face. She did not try to run. There was nowhere to go. Ho looked down at her for a long moment. Then he did something that confused her completely. He bowed. It was a deep, respectful bow, the kind that humans gave to people they honored. His forehead nearly touched his knees. When he straightened up, his expression had changed. The cold warrior was gone. In his place was something softer. "My name is Ho," he said. "I am very sorry that we had to meet this way. I know you must be frightened. But I promise you, on my life and the honor of my family, that I will never hurt you." Blinked, her translator was working correctly. She had understood every word, but the words did not make sense. I don't understand," she whispered. Her voice was quiet and musical the way all voices were. You won the galactic arena. You could have asked for anything. Why did you choose me?" Ho's eyes grew sad. "Because I saw you." "You saw me." "During the first round of the tournament, you were carrying drinks for the Emperor. One of the guards pushed you and you fell. Your tray broke and the drinks spilled. The guard laughed and kicked you while you tried to clean the mess." Remembered, it had been a normal day for her, nothing special. "I watched your face," Ho continued. "You did not cry, you did not beg, you simply cleaned the mess and stood up again. And in your eyes, just for a moment, I saw fire. I saw someone who refused to break, even when the entire galaxy told her she was nothing." He reached out slowly and touched her shoulder. His hand was gentle, far gentler than she expected. "I have spent 15 years learning about every species in the galaxy," he said. "They are not weak. Your people were scientists and artists and philosophers. Your civilization created music that made other species weep with joy. Your doctors developed medicines that saved billions of lives. You were never warriors, but you were never weak. You were simply different." Felt tears forming in her eyes. No one had ever spoken about her people this way. "Your species was conquered because you would not fight," Ho said. "And the galaxy has spent 600 years telling you that made you worthless. But I know better. I know that there are different kinds of strength. And I chose you because I believe you have a strength that the galaxy needs." He stepped back and spread his arms. "You are free, princess. I will not keep you as a slave or a servant. If you wish, I will take you anywhere in the galaxy. I will give you money and a ship and let you live whatever life you choose." Stared at him, freedom. She had never even dreamed of such a thing. "Or," Ho said, "you can come with me. I am going to do something impossible. I am going to change the galaxy, and I think you could help me do it." Above them, the rulers watched in confusion. Below them, millions of viewers across the galaxy watched on their screens. No one understood what the human was doing. But understood. For the first time in her life, someone had looked at her and seen not what she was, but what she could become. She took a deep breath. Then she stepped forward and placed her small blue hand in his large, bloodied one. "I will come with you," she said. And with those simple words, the future of the galaxy began to change. The ship was called the Wanderer, and it was nothing like it expected. She had imagined a warship, something cold and metal and full of weapons. Instead, the Wanderer was warm and comfortable. The walls were painted in soft colors. There were plants growing in pots near the windows. The furniture was old but well cared for, and there were books everywhere. Real books made of paper, something had only seen in museums. "My mother collected them," Ho explained when he noticed her staring. "Before she died, she asked me to take care of them, so they come with me wherever I go." They had left the arena 3 days ago. Ho had allowed the medical drones to heal his wounds, collected his winnings, and guided onto his ship without speaking to any of the confused reporters or angry rulers who tried to stop them. Now they were traveling through space, far from any empire or territory, just the two of them, alone among the stars. Spent the first 2 days hiding in her room. She was waiting for the trick. She was waiting for Ho to reveal his true intentions, to show her that his kind words had been lies. Every time he knocked on her door to offer her food or ask if she needed anything, she flinched and prepared herself for pain. But the pain never came. On the 3rd day, hunger finally drove her out of hiding. She found Ho in the ship's small kitchen, cooking something that smelled amazing. "Sit down," he said cheerfully. "I made breakfast. Do you know what pancakes are?" She did not, but she sat down anyway and watched as he placed a plate in front of her. The food was round and flat and golden brown. He poured something sweet and sticky over the top. "This is maple syrup," he said. "It comes from trees on Earth. We drill holes in them and collect the liquid inside. Then we boil it down until it becomes this. Try it." Took a small bite. The flavor exploded in her mouth, sweet and rich and wonderful. She made a sound of surprise and quickly took another bite. Ho laughed. It was a warm, honest laugh, nothing cruel about it. I thought you might like that. They are known for their love of sweet things. Your planet used to have thousands of species of flowering plants that produced nectar. Your people built your entire cuisine around sweetness. Stopped eating and stared at him. How do you know that? I told you. I spent 15 years studying every species in the galaxy. I wanted to understand them, not just fight them. He sat down across from her with his own plate of pancakes. I learned your language too, all 3 dialects. Would you like me to speak instead of using the translator? Before could answer, he spoke in her native tongue. His accent was not perfect, but his words were clear and correct. He said, "The morning sky brings sweet winds to those who wake with hope." Dropped her fork. That was an ancient greeting, something her grandmother had taught her as a child. She had not heard anyone speak her language in years. Tears began to roll down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," Ho said quickly, switching back to common speech. "I did not mean to upset you." "You did not upset me," whispered. "You honored me. No one has spoken to me since my family died." They sat in silence for a while, ate her pancakes and wiped her tears. Ho watched her with kind eyes and did not push her to talk. Finally, she asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Why are you doing this? The truth, please. I cannot take any more lies." Ho set down his fork and thought for a moment before answering. "When I was young, my planet was almost destroyed. A species called the came to Earth with a fleet of warships. They wanted our water, our metals, our resources. They did not care that billions of humans lived there. To them, we were just insects in the way." Knew about the invasion. It had happened 30 years ago and had killed a third of Earth's population before the other galactic powers had finally intervened. "After the war, I asked my father why no one had helped us sooner," Ho continued. "He said it was because humans were weak and unimportant. He said the galaxy only cared about power and Earth had no power. He said the strong took what they wanted and the weak suffered in silence." His hands tightened into fists on the table. "I decided that day to become strong. I trained until my body broke, and then I trained more. I entered the galactic arena because it was the only way for a human to gain power quickly. I needed to prove that humans were not weak. I needed to show the galaxy that we deserve respect." "And you succeeded," said. "You won. You are the first human champion in history." "Yes, but winning was only the beginning." Ho leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. "I do not want to just prove that humans are strong. I want to change the way the galaxy works. I want to build something new, a place where species are not judged by how many ships they have or how sharp their claws are. A place where the weak are protected instead of conquered. A place where people like you and your people are valued for what they truly are." Shook her head slowly. "That is impossible. The empires would never allow it." "The empires are not as strong as they pretend to be. They fight each other constantly. They waste resources on wars that benefit no one. They are held together by fear and tradition, not loyalty or love." Ho smiled. "I have studied them for 15 years. I know their weaknesses, and I know that the galaxy is ready for change. It just needs someone to start the fire." "And you think I can help you do this?" "I know you can, but not like this." He gestured at her thin body, her lowered eyes, her hunched shoulders. "Right now, you have been trained to be invisible. You have been trained to be weak. You have spent your entire life being told that you are worthless, and part of you believes it." His words hurt, but knew they were true. "I want to teach you," Ho said, "not how to fight. Your body was not built for combat, and there is no shame in that. But there are other kinds of strength. The strength to think clearly when others panic. The strength to see solutions that others miss. The strength to lead, to inspire, to bring people together. You want to teach me to be a leader. I want to teach you to be yourself. The real you, the one I saw in your eyes that day in the arena, the one who refused to break." The lessons began that same day. Ho started with history, not the history that the empires taught, full of great conquests and glorious battles, but the true history, the history of the small and the forgotten. He showed records of species that had been wiped out because they could not fight. He showed her planets that had been stripped bare by empires that claimed to be civilized. He showed her the suffering that the galaxy's rulers caused and then ignored. Knowledge is power, he said. The empires want people to be ignorant. They want them to accept the way things are. But once you understand how the galaxy really works, you can start to imagine how it could be different. Next came strategy. Ho taught how to read situations, how to predict what people would do based on their fears and desires. He played games with her, complex games that required thinking many moves ahead. At first, she lost every time, but slowly she began to understand. "You are smart," Ho told her after she finally beat him. "Smarter than most species I have met. The brain is designed for pattern recognition and creative problem solving. Your people were scientists and artists because your minds work differently than others. You see connections that others miss." "Then why were we conquered so easily?" "Because you were peaceful. You did not understand that other species would hurt you simply because they could. You trusted the galaxy, and the galaxy betrayed you." Felt anger rising in her chest. It was a new feeling, hot and sharp. "Good," Ho said, seeing the change in her expression. "That anger is important, but you must learn to control it. Anger without focus is just noise. Anger with purpose can move mountains." He taught her meditation techniques from Earth. He taught her how to breathe through her emotions without letting them control her. He taught her how to speak with authority, how to stand with confidence, how to meet someone's eyes without flinching. Months passed. The Wanderer traveled from system to system while grew stronger in ways that had nothing to do with muscles or weapons. One day, Ho took her to a space station in neutral territory. It was a rough place, full of smugglers and mercenaries and people running from their pasts. He led her into a crowded bar and sat down in the corner. "What are we doing here?" asked nervously. "You are going to negotiate a deal." He pointed at a group of aliens sitting across the room. "Those are traders from the Nexus Collective. They have medical supplies that are desperately needed on a refugee colony, but they want more money than the colony can pay. You want me to convince them to lower their price?" "I want you to try." His heart pounded. She had never done anything like this. She was just a servant, a slave, a nothing. Who was she to negotiate with traders? But then she remembered Ho's lessons. She remembered the fire in her own eyes. She stood up straight and walked across the bar. The traders looked at her with amusement. The leader was a large creature with green scales and too many teeth. "What does the little want?" he asked, laughing. Did not flinch. She did not lower her eyes. She met his gaze directly and spoke in a calm, steady voice. "I want to discuss business. The medical supplies you carry are worth approximately 12,000 credits on the open market. You are asking the colony for 18,000 because you know they are desperate. This is unfair, but more importantly, it is unwise." The trader stopped laughing. "Unwise? They are scattered across the galaxy, but there are still millions of us. We talk to each other. We remember those who help us and those who hurt us. If you cheat this colony, every in the galaxy will know your name within a week. You will never sell anything to our people again." She leaned forward slightly. "But if you sell the supplies at a fair price, you will earn the gratitude of an entire species. They may be weak, but we are excellent doctors, engineers, and scientists. We work on thousands of ships and stations across the galaxy. A word from us can open doors that credits cannot buy." The trader stared at her for a long moment. Then he began to laugh again, but this time it was different. There was respect in his eyes. "The little has teeth after all." He held out a massive clawed hand. 12,000 credits, you have a deal." Shook his hand without trembling. Then she walked back to Ho, who was smiling proudly. "You see," he said, "you never needed claws or muscles. You have a different weapon. You have a mind that can cut through lies and find the truth. You have a voice that can make people listen." That night, as the wanderer flew through the stars, looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the person staring back. Her spine was straight. Her chin was raised. Her silver eyes were no longer empty and afraid. She was still small. She was still fragile. Her bones would still break if someone hit her. But for the first time in her life, she did not feel weak. She felt like a fire that was just beginning to burn. The distress call came in the middle of the night. Was asleep in her cabin when the ship's alarm began to wail. She jumped out of bed and ran to the bridge, where Ho was already studying the screens. "What is happening?" she asked. "Colony 7, he said grimly. "It is a small settlement on the edge of space, mostly refugees, humans and a few other displaced species. They are under attack." Felt her blood run cold. No, raiders, a group called the Blood Stars. They are pirates who prey on weak colonies. They kill the strong and take the weak as slaves. The screens showed the colony's location. It was far from any military outpost. Even if someone sent help, it would take days to arrive. By then, everyone would be dead or captured. "How far are we?" asked. 6 hours at maximum speed. The raiders will reach the colony in 4. 6 hours, too slow. They would arrive to find nothing but bodies. Stared at the screens, her mind racing. She remembered everything Ho had taught her about strategy, about thinking under pressure, about finding solutions that others could not see. "Show me the star charts for that region," she said. Ho raised an eyebrow but did as she asked. The charts appeared on the main screen, showing the stars and planets near Colony 7. Studied them carefully. She looked at the patrol routes, the trade lanes, the locations of various ships and stations, and then she saw it. There, she pointed at a spot on the map. "The Merchant Guild has a convoy passing through this area in 3 hours, 12 cargo ships with military escort. If we contact them now and explain the situation, they might be willing to help." The Merchant Guild does not get involved in local conflicts. It is against their policy. Their policy is to avoid unnecessary risk. But Colony 7 produces medical herbs that the Guild cannot get anywhere else. If the colony is destroyed, the Guild loses a valuable supplier. They have a reason to care. Ho smiled slowly. "You want to convince a merchant convoy to fight pirates. I want to give them a reason to protect their investment." They sent the message immediately. Wrote it herself, carefully explaining the situation and the potential loss to the Guild's business. She included data on the colony's production, its future contracts, its importance to the medical trade. The response came 30 minutes later. The Guild convoy would divert to Colony 7. They would not fight directly, but they would provide support and intimidation. If the raiders saw military escorts approaching, they might decide the colony was not worth the trouble. But knew it might not be enough. The Blood Stars were known for their aggression. They did not scare easily. "We need more," she said. "We need to make them afraid." "How do you plan to do that?" Thought about everything she knew about pirates and raiders. They were not soldiers. They did not fight for honor or country. They fought for profit. They attacked weak targets because weak targets could not fight back. They avoided strong targets because losing ships cost money. "We need to make them think Colony 7 is a trap," she said. "We need to make them believe that attacking it would cost more than they could possibly gain." "And how do we do that when we have one ship and they have a fleet of 20? Smiled. It was a new expression for her, one she had learned from Ho. It was the smile of someone who saw a path that others could not see. "We lie." Over the next 3 hours, sent dozens of messages across various communication channels. She knew that the Blood Stars monitored these channels, looking for information about potential targets. The first message was a military broadcast, carefully forged to look official. It warned all ships to avoid the Colony 7 area due to ongoing military exercises. It mentioned experimental weapons and advised caution. The second message was a civilian emergency alert, claiming that a deadly plague had broken out on Colony 7. Anyone approaching the colony risked infection. The third message was a bounty notice, allegedly from the Empire, offering a massive reward for any blood starships captured in space. It suggested that the Empire was setting traps for pirates in the region. Each message was designed to create doubt and fear. Each message made attacking Colony 7 seem like a bad idea. "This is clever," Ho admitted, "but the blood stars might see through the lies. They have experienced leaders." "That is why we need one more thing." Took a deep breath. "We need to show them something that cannot be ignored. We need to show them you. Me. You are the champion of the galactic arena. Your face is known across the entire galaxy. If the blood stars learn that Ho the human is protecting Colony 7, they will hesitate. No pirate wants to fight someone who defeated 12 galactic champions in single combat." Ho was silent for a moment, then he nodded slowly. "You want me to be a scarecrow? I want you to be a threat. A real threat that adds weight to all the fake ones. They will not know which warnings are real and which are false, but they will know that you are real, and that might be enough to make them choose a different target." The Wanderer arrived at Colony 7 2 hours before the raiders. The Merchant Guild convoy arrived 30 minutes later. Together, they began preparing the colony's defenses. Colony 7 was small, just a few hundred buildings spread across a dusty plain. The population was about 3,000, mostly farmers and craftspeople. They had no military, no weapons, no way to fight a pirate fleet. But they had. She walked through the colony, talking to people, learning their skills and resources. She found engineers who could build barricades. She found chemists who could create smoke bombs and flash grenades. She found pilots who had flown civilian ships and could be taught basic combat maneuvers. Most importantly, she found hope. The colonists had been preparing to die. They had been saying goodbye to their families and making peace with their gods. But when told them they could fight, something changed in their eyes. "We are not soldiers," an elderly man told her. "We do not know how to kill." "You do not need to kill," replied. "You only need to make the raiders believe that attacking you would be more trouble than it is worth. Pirates do not want battles. They want easy targets. We are going to show them that Colony 7 is not easy." When the Blood Star fleet appeared on the sensors, the colonists were ready. 20 pirate ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and approached the colony. They expected a simple raid. They expected fear and chaos and easy victims. What they found was something else entirely. The Wanderer hovered directly in the raiders' path, broadcasting Ho's image on all frequencies. His face filled every screen on every pirate ship. The champion of the galactic arena, the human who had killed 12 galactic champions, staring directly at them. "This colony is under my protection," he said. His voice was calm and cold. "Turn around now and you will live. Continue forward and I will destroy every one of your ships. This is your only warning." The pirate fleet hesitated. They had heard of the human champion. Everyone in the galaxy had heard of him. While they hesitated, the Merchant Guild convoy appeared behind them. 12 cargo ships with military escort, weapons armed and ready. The convoy broadcast its own message, warning the pirates that any aggressive action would be met with force. And then the lies began to work. The pirates' communication officers reported the military warnings about experimental weapons. They reported the plague alerts. They reported the bounty notices that suggested this whole thing might be a trap set by the Empire. The Blood Star leader was not a fool. He studied the situation carefully. He saw one legendary human warrior, a merchant convoy with military escort, a colony that was supposed to be defenseless but now seemed to be prepared for a fight. He thought about the strange warnings his officers had intercepted. Something was wrong here, he could feel it. "This is not worth the risk," he finally said. "There are easier targets, we will leave." The pirate fleet turned around and jumped back into faster-than-light travel. They disappeared from the sensors without firing a single shot. Colony 7 erupted in celebration. People hugged each other and cried with relief. Children who had been hiding in shelters came out to see the sun. The elderly man who had said they were not soldiers found and bowed deeply. "You saved us," he said. "How can we ever repay you?" "You do not need to repay me," said. "Just remember this day. Remember that you are not helpless. Remember that even the weak can stand against the strong if they are smart and brave and willing to work together." The news spread quickly. Within days, the story of Colony 7 was being told across the galaxy. A princess and a human champion had saved a refugee colony without firing a shot. They had used intelligence and deception and psychology to defeat an enemy 20 times their size. The Empire was embarrassed. Colony 7 was technically in their space, but they had done nothing to protect it. A human and had done what the mighty military had failed to do. The Empire was intrigued. They began sending spies to gather information about the human and his mysterious princess companion. But most importantly, the refugees and outcasts of the galaxy heard the story and felt something they had not felt in a long time. Hope. Someone was standing up for them. Someone was showing them that they did not have to accept their fate. On the Wanderer, traveling away from Colony 7, Ho sat across from and poured 2 cups of tea. "You did well today," he said. "Better than well. You saved 3,000 lives without spilling a drop of blood." Stared at her tea. Her hands were still shaking from the stress of the day. "I was terrified the entire time," she admitted. "I kept thinking about what would happen if the pirates called our bluff." Being brave does not mean having no fear. Being brave means acting correctly despite the fear. You were very brave today. "I only did what you taught me." "No," Ho shook his head firmly. "I taught you tools. You decided how to use them. That strategy, those lies, the way you organized the colonists, that was all you. I could not have done what you did today." Looked up at him, surprised. "You fought 12 champions and won." "Exactly, I fought. That is what I know how to do. But fighting would not have saved Colony 7. Fighting would have gotten us all killed. You found a different way, a better way." He reached across the table and took her hand. "You are ready," he said. "You do not need me to teach you anymore. You have become something new, something the galaxy has never seen before. A leader who defeats enemies without weapons. A general who wins wars without battles." "I am not a general." "Not yet," Ho smiled. "But you will be. The galaxy is about to learn what happens when they underestimate the fragile princess they forgot about." Thought about the celebration in Colony 7. She thought about the hope in people's eyes. She thought about the pirates who had run away without understanding why they were really afraid. For the first time, she began to believe that changing the galaxy might actually be possible. 2 years had passed since Colony 7, 2 years that changed everything. Stood on the bridge of a ship called the Rising Dawn. It was much larger than the Wanderer, a command vessel capable of carrying 200 crew members and coordinating dozens of smaller ships. Through the massive windows, she could see a fleet of over 300 vessels, all flying the same banner, a silver flame on a field of deep blue. The banner of the Free Alliance. It had started small. After Colony 7, refugees and outcasts began reaching out to, asking for her help. Some needed protection from raiders. Some needed medicine or food. Some simply needed someone to tell them that their lives mattered. Help them all. She traveled from colony to colony, station to station, solving problems with her mind instead of weapons. She negotiated trade agreements between species that had been enemies for centuries. She settled disputes that had seemed impossible to resolve. She found ways to turn weaknesses into strengths and enemies into friends. And everywhere she went, she asked the same question. What if we stopped waiting for the empires to save us? What if we saved ourselves? The answer grew louder each time she asked. Now the Free Alliance included 27 species, humans, and dozens of others who had been forgotten or abandoned by the great empires. They were not an army in the traditional sense. Most of them were still farmers, doctors, engineers, and merchants. But they had learned to work together, to share resources, to protect each other. And they had learned to follow. She had never asked to be a leader. She had never wanted power or fame. But somehow, the small, fragile princess that Emperor had dismissed as worthless had become the most important person in the lives of millions. Ho stood beside her on the bridge, watching the fleet with pride. He was no longer her teacher. Now he was her partner, her advisor, her friend. He still handled the fighting when fighting was necessary. But the thinking, the planning, the leading, that was domain. "They are getting nervous," he said. "Our spies report that Emperor has been having a lot of meetings with his generals. They are trying to decide what to do about us." "They will attack eventually," replied calmly. "We have grown too large to ignore. The empires cannot allow an independent power to exist in their space." "Are we ready for that?" "No, not yet. We need more time, more allies, more resources." She turned away from the window and walked to the central command table. A holographic map of the galaxy floated above it, showing the territories of the great empires and the small, scattered territories of the Free Alliance. "But we might not have to fight thee at all," she continued. "At least not directly." Ho raised an eyebrow. "What do you have in mind?" "The Empire is strong, but it has enemies. The Empire has been looking for an opportunity to weaken them for decades. Lord is ambitious and patient. If we could convince him that supporting the Free Alliance would hurt his rivals." "You want to play the empires against each other." "I want to buy time. Every month we survive, we grow stronger. Every colony that joins us is one less colony paying taxes to the empires. Eventually, we will be too valuable to destroy. The empires will have to negotiate with us as equals." Ho smiled. "When I first met you, you could barely look me in the eyes. Now you are planning political strategies that would confuse the most experienced diplomats in the galaxy." "I had a good teacher. I taught you how to think. Everything else you learned on your own." A communication officer approached them with a message. "Princess, we have received a transmission from space. Lord requests a meeting." And Ho exchanged glances. "Speaking of the Lord, and he appears." "Send a reply," said. "Tell Lord that I would be honored to meet with him. Suggest neutral territory, the Merchant Guild station, at 3 days from now." The meeting was held in a private room aboard the station. Lord arrived with a small group of advisors, all of them wearing the silver robes of the nobility. He was tall and thin, with skin like polished metal and eyes that seemed to see everything. Came with only Ho. She wore a simple blue dress, nothing fancy or intimidating. She wanted Lord to underestimate her, at least at first. "Princess," Lord said, his 4 arms folded across his chest, "I have been watching your little alliance with great interest. You have accomplished remarkable things for someone of your stature." "Thank you, Lord, your words are kind." "They are not kind, they are accurate. I do not waste time on kindness." He sat down across from her and studied her face. "Tell me, Princess, what do you want? What is your ultimate goal?" "Peace," said simply. "Security for my people and all the other species that the great empires have forgotten. A place in the galaxy where the weak are not automatically prey for the strong." A beautiful dream, but the galaxy does not work that way. The strong have always ruled. It is the natural order of things. The natural order can be changed. Lord laughed softly. Can it? You have 300 ships and a few million followers. The Empire has 50,000 ships and controls 100 billion citizens. The mathematics are not in your favor. Perhaps not, but I am not planning to fight the Empire, not directly. Then what are you planning? Leaned forward slightly. I am planning to make the Free Alliance so valuable that destroying it would cost more than it would gain. I am planning to build trade relationships, scientific partnerships, cultural exchanges. I am planning to weave our alliance into the fabric of galactic society so deeply that removing us would tear holes that could never be repaired. Lord Silver eyes narrowed. And where does the Empire fit into this plan? The Empire is powerful, but it has limitations. Your technology is advanced, but your population is small. You need resources and labor from other species, which means you need trade partners. They are your rivals, which means you cannot depend on them. The other empires are too far away to be reliable. She spread her hands on the table. The Free Alliance could be the perfect partner for your empire. We have skilled workers, medical experts, and engineers. We have access to rare resources that the empires have difficulty obtaining. And we have one thing that no empire possesses, the trust of the forgotten peoples of the galaxy. Trust, Lord seemed amused. What value does trust have? More than you might think. There were once the greatest doctors in the galaxy. There were the finest engineers. The crystalline beings were artists whose works are still considered priceless. All of these peoples were conquered and scattered, but their skills remain. They just need a reason to use them again. And you believe you can provide that reason. I already have. In the past 2 years, the Free Alliance has developed 3 new medical treatments, 2 new propulsion technologies, and an agricultural system that can feed 10 times more people using half the resources. Our scientists are free to experiment without the restrictions of imperial bureaucracy. Our engineers are free to innovate without fear of political consequences. Pulled out a small data chip and placed it on the table. This contains detailed information about our recent achievements. I am offering the Empire a partnership. You provide us with protection and political support. We provide you with technology, resources, and skilled workers. Together, we become strong enough that they cannot threaten either of us. Lord picked up the chip and examined it. You are asking me to oppose Emperor. That is a dangerous game. You have been opposing Emperor your entire life. You have just been doing it quietly. I am asking you to do it openly, but with allies instead of alone. The room was silent for a long moment. Lord stared at, searching her face for any sign of weakness or deception, but met his gaze without flinching. She had learned long ago that powerful beings respected confidence. Finally, Lord smiled. It was a cold smile, the smile of someone who had just found a useful tool. You are not what I expected, Princess. When the human chose you as his prize, I thought he was making a joke. I see now that the joke was on us. He stood up and extended one of his 4 hands. The Empire will consider your proposal. I make no promises, but I will say this. You have given me much to think about. You may yet change the galaxy little. I look forward to watching you try. The news of the meeting spread quickly. Rumors flew across the galaxy. The Free Alliance was negotiating with the Empire. The balance of power was shifting. Something new was growing in the spaces between the great empires. Emperor was furious. He called his generals and demanded that they crush the Free Alliance immediately, but his advisors counseled caution. They were watching. A direct attack might trigger a larger war. Lord was intrigued. He studied the data chip had given him and found that her claims were true. The Free Alliance really was producing remarkable innovations. Perhaps there was value in keeping them alive, at least for now. And across the galaxy, in refugee camps and forgotten colonies, people who had never dared to hope began to whisper about the princess who stood against emperors. On the rising dawn, watched the stars and thought about everything that had happened. She remembered being a servant, carrying drinks for Emperor. She remembered being chosen as a prize, expecting to be enslaved or killed. She remembered learning to believe in herself, one lesson at a time. Ho joined her at the window. "Lord will support us," he said, "not because he believes in our cause, but because he sees how he can use us. We need to be careful." "I know. Lord is dangerous. He will help us as long as it benefits him and abandon us the moment it does not." "Then why work with him?" "Because we need time. Time to grow, time to become strong, time to build something that cannot be easily destroyed." Turn to face him. "When we first met, you told me that you wanted to change the galaxy. You said you needed my help." "I remember. I finally understand what you meant. The galaxy will not change because of one battle or one treaty. It will change because millions of people start believing that change is possible. Our job is not to fight the empires. Our job is to show everyone that there is another way." Ho nodded slowly. "And how do we do that?" Looked back at the stars. "We keep winning," she said. "Not through violence, but through example. Every colony we save, every species we unite, every problem we solve without weapons, that is a victory. And eventually, there will be too many victories to ignore. The galaxy will have to accept that the old way of doing things is over. It could take decades." "Then it takes decades. I am not in a hurry." She smiled, and there was something in that smile that had not been there 2 years ago. It was the confidence of someone who knew exactly who they were and what they were meant to do. "The empires think they are watching a small rebellion that will burn out soon. They are wrong. They are watching the beginning of a revolution, and by the time they realize it, it will be too late to stop." The warning came from the edge of the galaxy. Something was coming, something old, something terrible. The Void Swarm had been dormant for 10,000 years. Ancient records described them as a plague of living machines, creatures that consumed entire star systems and used the materials to build more of themselves. They had destroyed dozens of civilizations before finally disappearing into the dark spaces between galaxies. Now they were back, and they were hungry. The first attacks were devastating. 3 colony worlds fell in a single week. Billions died. The Void Swarm did not negotiate, did not communicate, did not show mercy. They simply consumed everything in their path and moved on to the next target. Panic spread across the galaxy. The great empires, which had spent centuries fighting each other, suddenly realized that they faced a threat far greater than any of them could handle alone. Emperor called for unity. Lord agreed. For the first time in recorded history, the emperors and lords and rulers of the galaxy gathered to discuss a common enemy. But they could not agree on anything. Emperor wanted to attack the swarm directly with massive fleets. Lord wanted to retreat and fortify key positions. Other rulers had their own plans, their own priorities, their own fears. They argued while more worlds burned. Princess watched the chaos from the observation deck of the Rising Dawn. The Free Alliance had grown enormously over the past 5 years. They now had over 1,000 ships and controlled territory that rivaled small empires. But even they were not strong enough to face the Void Swarm alone. "They are going to kill themselves," Ho said, standing beside her. "The empires are so used to fighting each other that they cannot work together even when their survival depends on it. Then someone needs to show them how." Ho looked at her. "You cannot be serious. The emperors will never take orders from a princess. They barely acknowledge that you exist. They will not have a choice. The swarm does not care about politics or pride. It will eat the empire and every other empire in the galaxy unless we stop it together. Someone needs to make them understand that." She turned and walked toward the communication center. "Contact all the rulers. Tell them that Princess of the Free Alliance requests an audience at the emergency summit. Tell them I have a plan." The summit was held on a massive space station in neutral territory. Thousands of diplomats and military officers from every major power in the galaxy gathered in a single enormous chamber. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Emperor sat on a raised platform, his stone face showing nothing. Lord was nearby, his silver eyes scanning the crowd. Dozens of other rulers, commanders, and advisors filled the room, all of them whispering and arguing and worrying about the coming darkness. When Princess entered, the room fell silent. She was small. She was fragile. Her bones would break if someone gripped her too hard. Next to the massive warriors and the tall nobles, she looked like a child playing at politics. But she walked with perfect confidence. Her silver eyes swept across the room without fear. And behind her walked Ho, the legendary human champion, the only warrior who had ever defeated the greatest fighters of every species in single combat. "Thank you for allowing me to speak," said. Her voice was calm and clear. "I know that many of you do not respect me. I know that many of you still think of me as the worthless prize that a human chose to mock the great empires. I understand your feelings, but today those feelings do not matter." She raised her hand, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed the void swarms advance, the worlds they had consumed, the path of destruction they were carving through the galaxy. In 6 months, the swarm will reach the core systems. They will be attacked in 8 months, the capital in 9. After that, every major population center in the galaxy will fall within 2 years. The numbers were terrible. The projections were terrifying. Several rulers made sounds of distress. "I have studied the swarm," continued. "My scientists have analyzed their patterns, their behaviors, their weaknesses. They are not invincible. They can be stopped, but only if we work together." "And who will lead this effort?" Emperor demanded. "You, Princess, who has never commanded a real military force." "Yes." The room erupted in angry shouts and disbelieving laughter. Emperor's stone face cracked into something that might have been a smile. Lord simply stared at her with those cold silver eyes. Waited until the noise died down. "I know you do not trust me. I know you think I am too weak, too small, too unimportant. But ask yourselves this. Who else has brought together 27 species that had never worked together before? Who else has won victory after victory without firing a single weapon? Who else has proven that they can unite the impossible?" She stepped forward, meeting Emperor's gaze directly. "You are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Your fleets are massive. Your soldiers are brave. But you have been fighting each other for so long that you have forgotten how to fight together. Your strategies are designed to defeat each other, not a common enemy. Your commanders do not trust each other enough to coordinate their attacks." She pointed at the holographic display. "The void swarm does not have these problems. They act as one mind, one purpose, one will. If you face them divided, they will destroy you. If you face them united, under a single command, you might survive." "And that command should be yours?" Lord asked. "Yes, because I am the only one that all of you can accept. The will not follow a commander. The will not follow a commander. But neither of you considers the Free Alliance a threat. Neither of you sees me as a rival for power. I am neutral ground. I am the only leader you can all agree to follow without losing face." The argument continued for hours. Rulers shouted at each other. Generals debated strategy. Pride and fear and ancient grudges threatened to destroy any chance of cooperation. But in the end, they agreed. Not because they trusted, not because they believed she could win, but because she was right. She was the only option that did not involve one empire surrendering to another. Princess of the fragile alien that no one had wanted, became the supreme commander of the combined galactic fleet. The fleet was the largest ever assembled in galactic history. Over 200,000 warships from every species and empire. Billions of soldiers. Resources from 100 worlds. All of it coordinated by a small blue alien who had once been a servant carrying drinks for Emperor. did not try to be a warrior. She knew her limitations. Instead, she did what she had always done, she thought. She planned. She found ways to turn weaknesses into strengths and enemies into allies. She organized the fleet into mixed units that forced different species to work together. She created communication systems that allowed instant coordination across vast distances. She studied the void swarm's patterns and found vulnerabilities that centuries of analysis had missed. Ho led the strike teams that conducted the most dangerous missions. He was still the greatest warrior in the galaxy, and he used that skill to inspire others and terrify enemies. But he always reported too. He always followed her plans. The final battle was fought in the Spiral Arm, where the Void Swarm had gathered its main force for a push toward the galactic core. It lasted for 3 weeks. Thousands of ships were destroyed on both sides. Millions died. But strategy worked. She did not try to defeat the swarm through direct combat. Instead, she targeted their coordination systems, the nodes that allowed them to act as one mind. She sent small, fast ships to destroy these nodes while the main fleet drew the swarm's attention. As the nodes fell, the swarm became confused, uncoordinated, vulnerable. Then she unleashed the combined might of every empire in the galaxy. The warriors charged with the fury of stone giants awakened. The forces struck with precision and poison. Human ships fought with the stubborn persistence that had always defined their species, and species that had been enemies for centuries stood side by side and fought as one. The Void Swarm was broken. Not destroyed entirely. That would take years of follow-up operations, but their main force was shattered, their advance stopped, their threat contained. The galaxy would survive. When the fighting was over, stood on the bridge of the rising dawn and looked at the battlefield. Debris from thousands of ships floated in the void. Stars that had been threatened now burned safely in the darkness. She had won. Emperor appeared on her communication screen. His stone face was different now. There was something in his expression that had never been there before. "Princess," he said slowly, "I was wrong about you. I thought you were worthless. I thought the human had insulted me by choosing you. I understand now that I was the fool." "Thank you, Emperor. The Empire owes you a debt that can never be repaid. If you ever need anything, anything at all, you have only to ask." Lord appeared on another screen. "The Empire echoes these sentiments. You have proven yourself to be the most remarkable being I have ever encountered. The galaxy is fortunate that you exist." Similar messages came from rulers across the galaxy. Some were sincere, some were political, but all of them acknowledged the same truth. Princess had saved them all. Later, when the ceremonies were over and the diplomats had gone home, sat alone in her quarters. Ho found her there, staring at the stars through her window. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I am thinking about the day we met," she said softly. "You chose me as your prize, and I thought my life was over. I thought I was going to be a slave forever. And now I have just commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. Now emperors bow to me and ask for my guidance. Now I am called the savior of the galaxy." She shook her head slowly. "It does not feel real." Ho sat down beside her. "Do you remember what I told you the first day? I said I saw fire in your eyes. I said I saw someone who refused to break." "I remember." "I was right, but I was also wrong." He took her hand gently. "I thought I was rescuing you. I thought I was going to teach you how to be strong, but you did not need rescuing. You did not need me to make you strong. You were always strong. You just needed someone to see it." Smiled. It was a tired smile, but also a peaceful one. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you decide. You have more power than anyone in the galaxy. You could make yourself an empress. You could rule over everything." "I do not want to rule. I never wanted power." "I know, that is why you would be good at it." Ho smiled. "But if you do not want to rule, then do what you have always done. Help people. Solve problems. show the galaxy that there is a better way. Looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were celebrating their survival. Somewhere out there, species that had been enemies were learning to be friends. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was changing. She had started as a servant. She had become a prize. She had transformed into a leader, a commander, a legend. But underneath all of that, she was still the same person. Still a princess with fragile bones and a heart full of fire. Still someone who believed that kindness was stronger than cruelty and hope was stronger than fear. "The galaxy is not saved yet," she said finally. "The swarm is wounded but not dead. The empires are united now, but they will start fighting again soon. There is still so much work to do. Then we should get started." Stood up and straightened her dress. She looked at Ho, at the human who had seen something in her that no one else could see. The human who had lifted her up and then stepped aside so she could stand on her own. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. Thank me by making the galaxy better. That was always the plan." She nodded and walked toward the door. Behind her, through the window, the stars waited. The galaxy stretched out in all directions, full of wonder and danger and possibility. Full of people who needed help, species who needed hope, problems that needed solving. And at the center of it all, walking forward with quiet confidence, was a fragile alien princess who had become the most powerful person in the galaxy. Not through strength of arms, not through conquest or violence, but through intelligence, compassion, and an unbreakable will that the universe had mistaken for weakness. The galaxy would never make that mistake again.